elderly black man, humiliated for his skin. He said 5 words that froze the SWAT team. "Hey, old man, you're in the wrong place. The nursing home's across town," a cop shouted, sparking laughter from officers surrounding the building. James Carter, 70, stood still before the yellow tape, cordoning off a Chicago apartment complex, his weary eyes tracking the SWAT team's frantic preparations to storm a unit where an armed man held 3 hostages. Officers in tactical gear checked weapons, adjusted vests, and received final orders. "Sir, you need to step back. This is a restricted area," a young officer snapped, approaching impatiently. "I live there," James replied calmly, pointing to a second-floor apartment. The officer glanced at his colleagues and laughed. "Sure you do, and I'm Superman. Now get out before I escort you." James adjusted his worn cap and stepped back. Not the first time he'd been dismissed with contempt, as if his age and skin made him invisible, incompetent, or a liar. He noticed officers warmly greeting white residents, taking their words at face value, while he faced suspicion and scorn. Across the street, Captain Daniels, the operations lead, spoke rapidly on his phone, reviewing building blueprints spread on a squad car's hood. Tension was palpable. 3 hours of negotiations with no progress. Last attempt at contact failed. A voice crackled over the radio. No response from the suspect. Delta team in position. James watched the SWAT movements, shaking his head slightly. He noticed something others missed: the team's positioning, the planned entry angle, the lack of cover in key spots. His seasoned eyes caught details the younger officers overlooked. "This is gonna go wrong," he muttered. A month earlier, he'd seen a strange man entering the building at odd hours and tried warning security, only to be brushed off. "I'll check it later." It never happened. 2 weeks ago, he smelled chemicals from apartment 402, but his concerns were ignored again. Now he watched a tragedy unfold. "Team will move in 60 seconds, a radio voice announced. That's when James made his choice. He strode toward the tape and ducked under it with surprising agility, startling everyone. "Hey, stop!" an officer yelled, rushing over. 2 cops grabbed his arms. "What the hell are you doing, old man?" Captain Daniels approached, annoyed by the interruption. "Get this man out of here now!" "You'll all die if you go in like this," James said, his calm voice cutting through the chaos. "What are you talking about?" Daniels scoffed. "I've known this building 40 years. I worked on it. There's a passage between apartments 402 and 404, not on the blueprints. He's set a trap." Daniels eyed him dismissively. "Look, we have experts here. Someone get this guy out." James cut in. "Judge a man by his words, not his looks. Last week I saw the suspect moving chemicals. I tried to warn you." "Why should we trust you?" Daniels demanded. Then James spoke 5 words that silenced everyone. "Delta Force Commander, Operation Thunder." Instant silence. Daniels' eyes widened with recognition, contempt replaced by shock and confusion. What the officers didn't know was that this seemingly ordinary elderly black man hid a past that would reshape the operation. Their treatment of him was just the start of a lesson they'd never forget. If this story of prejudice and respect touched you, stay tuned to see how a moment of humiliation sparked change no one saw coming. James' 5 words carried a code few knew. Delta Force Commander, Operation Thunder, wasn't just a statement. It was a buried identity, a past unimaginable to anyone on that street. Daniels blinked, his sneer turning to uncertainty. "You're bluffing," he said, voice wavering. "Sector 9, access code 3282, Bravo Zulu," James replied calmly. "Check it." Daniels stepped back, barking into his radio. Seconds later, his face transformed. "Sir," he said, returning with newfound deference, "I apologize for the misunderstanding." Officers exchanged confused glances. James remained impassive. "You've got 20 minutes before he triggers explosives," he said. "And no, it's not just chemicals. I saw electronic components brought into that apartment for weeks." Daniels ordered everyone back, clearing space for James to speak. A young female officer watched intently. "Lieutenant Sarah Lopez," she introduced herself, "negotiations specialist. If you know this building, we need you." James nodded, seeing in her the respect others lacked. "Apartment 402 has a structural flaw," he explained. "During construction, the blueprints missed a gap between the walls of 402 and 404, not on any floor plan. Access is through a vent panel in 404's bathroom." Lieutenant Brooks, who'd mocked him, approached skeptically. "So now we're trusting an old guy claiming he was some elite soldier?" "This is ridiculous," he muttered to Daniels. "Lieutenant," Daniels replied quietly, "I just got direct confirmation from operations. This man was one of Delta Force's most decorated commanders. Operation Thunder, 1980, top secret." The revelation didn't sway Brooks. It fueled his resentment. A black elderly man he'd ridiculed now held sway. Brooks argued that even if James had a past, it was 40 years ago. Tactics had changed. James listened silently, detailing the building to Lopez, who absorbed every word, drafting an alternate plan. "He could be bluffing about explosives," Brooks insisted. "No," James interrupted. "You have visual confirmation. You just didn't see it." He calmly took an analytical tablet, zooming in on 402's window. On the sill, barely visible, sat a small device. He explained it was a motion sensor tied to a detonator. "This guy has military training." Lopez studied the image. "He's right. How'd we miss this?" As the team reworked their strategy, James sat on a nearby bench, knee pain flaring. A reminder of shrapnel lodged there decades ago, an invisible medal to those who saw only an old man. "Why never mention your past?" Lopez asked, sitting beside him. James smiled faintly. "Think anyone would believe an old black guy claiming he was a Delta commander?" A radio crackled. "Suspect demands to speak with someone named Carter. Says he knows James Carter. Will negotiate only with him." All eyes turned to James. "You know him?" Daniels asked. "Nathan Reed," James replied calmly. "Ex-military. We served together long ago." Lopez studied his steady face. "You knew he'd ask for you, didn't you?" James didn't answer directly. For weeks, he'd silently tracked Reed's movements, piecing together clues, chemicals, components, signals only his training could decode. "Let me talk to him," he said, standing resolutely. No one imagined that while police debated his credibility, James Carter was steps ahead, drawing on decades of undocumented operations never meant for history books. In his pocket lay a folded paper with 5 different words that would change everything again. James adjusted his vest and checked his communicator. Hostage negotiation protocol required staying behind the cordon, but he knew that wouldn't work with Reed. "I'm not staying here," he said, removing the earpiece. "I'm going in." "Absolutely not," Daniels protested. "It's against all protocols." Your protocols don't work with Nathan Reed, James replied. He was trained to resist them. I trained him. Silence fell. Lopez looked at him with new understanding. You were his mentor, she realized. James nodded slightly. Operation Black Falcon, 1985. I trained a special unit for infiltration and extraction. Reed was my best until Beirut. Lopez checked her tablet. No records of Beirut operations from that period. Exactly, James said, his gaze distant. Some missions never officially existed. Brooks laughed nervously. This is absurd. We're not sending him in based on unverified secret mission stories. We've confirmed his identity, Daniel snapped. If he says he knows Reed, I believe him. James checked his weapon. Not standard issue, but one Daniels had sourced from the armory after his identity was verified. I have 15 minutes, James said. If I'm not out with the hostages by then, do what you must. Approaching the building, James moved with utter calm. Under skeptical police gazes, he simply walked to the main entrance. He's suicidal, Brooks muttered, watching through binoculars. No, Lopez countered. He's doing what none of us could, speaking the suspect's language. In the lobby, James moved confidently, not crouching or hiding, as if fetching mail. Nathan, he called evenly on the 4th floor. It's Carter. A hoarse voice answered from behind 402's door. Commander, is that really you? Open the door. How do I know it's not a trap? James smiled faintly. Hawk, November 3rd, Bravo. Silence, then the sound of locks. The door cracked open, revealing a gaunt, gray-haired man with a frantic gaze. Nathan Reed, former Special Forces, now a man on the edge. Commander, he muttered, saluting instinctively. They said you were dead. Almost. Come in. Inside, 3 hostages sat bound but unharmed. James assessed the scene. 2 explosive charges on windows, 1 on the back door, motion sensors at all entries. Why, Nathan? They abandoned us, Commander. After Beirut, they erased our records, denied us treatment. I faked my death, but the voices won't stop. James nodded, recognizing untreated PTSD in a soldier betrayed by the system he served. I saw you weeks ago, he said. I knew the signs. Reed laughed bitterly. And I recognized you. Legendary Commander Carter, reduced to an old man no one respects. That's how they treat us when we're no longer useful. Outside, SWAT positioned for entry. Brooks convinced Daniels the talks had failed. He's not coming back, probably dead. We go now. We have 7 minutes, Lopez protested. We can't risk more lives for a stubborn old man, Brooks retorted, taking tactical command. Inside, James sat calmly across from Reed. They're preparing to storm, he said. Then we all die, Reed replied, showing a detonator. Sensors on every entry. If they try, this place is dust. James nodded. I know, but you forgot something I taught you. What? Always check for hidden passages. Reed's eyes widened in realization. Too late. James moved with stunning speed, no trace of age or pain, only lethal precision. In 3 seconds, Reed was disarmed, the detonator secured in James' hand. Outside, SWAT advanced under Brooks' command. Radios crackled with an urgent alert. Abort. Abort. Repeat. Abort. Lopez's voice. Keep moving, Brooks ordered. We're not stopping. The team hesitated, torn by conflicting orders. Then, James' calm voice delivered 5 words. Black Falcon, Abort now. Explosives. SWAT froze instantly. Not ordinary words, but an emergency code known only to elite operatives. Brooks stared, baffled, as his team halted. "What are you doing?" "Move." "Sir," a team member replied, removing his helmet. "That code's for confirmed nuclear or chemical threats. Delta Protocol." The building's main door swung open. James Carter emerged calmly, leading 3 disoriented but unharmed hostages. Behind him, in cuffs, head bowed, walked Nathan Reed. The scene felt unreal. An elderly black man, mocked hours earlier, now commanded absolute respect from the tactical unit. As medics tended to the hostages, James handed Daniels the detonator and a notebook. 3 weeks of planning, enough explosives to level half a block. He needed help, not bullets. Brooks stood paralyzed, his arrogance replaced by shock and shame. The man he'd called Grandpa had done what an entire team couldn't. As police lights lit the night, one detail stood out. Veteran SWAT members now addressed James not as Sir or Carter, but Commander, with the reverence reserved for living legends. James Carter's revelations were just beginning. Behind those 5 words that halted an elite team lay decades of undocumented missions, a life dedicated to protecting people who'd never know his name. The ultimate irony: the system he served faithfully for years dismissed him as invisible until a crisis demanded skills no manual could teach. The next morning, James Carter's story hit front pages. Forgotten hero, ignored man saves hostages. Photos captured the mayor awarding the 70-year-old black man at an impromptu ceremony. The Chicago PD faced a firestorm of criticism as videos of James' mistreatment went viral. Hey, Grandpa became a symbol of institutional bias. Lieutenant Brooks was suspended, facing an internal probe for misconduct and negligence. A week later, James got an unexpected call. "Mr. Carter, this is the Director of Homeland Security. We need to talk about your service and Nathan Reed." In a federal office, James faced a room of high-ranking officers. Classified documents on screen revealed a grim truth. Reed wasn't alone. Dozens of veterans like him were abandoned post-covert missions, their records erased, medical care denied. The Beirut incident never officially existed, the director explained. "Nor did you," James nodded slowly. "And now you want to fix it because it's public." "We need your help," the director admitted. "You trained these men. You know them. Some may be planning acts like Reed's." James eyed the anxious faces. The same system that discarded him now begged for aid. "I'll help on one condition," he said. "A full reintegration and treatment program for all abandoned operatives. Official recognition, retroactive medical benefits, millions in costs. And how many lives if you don't?" 3 months later, the Horizon program launched in a discreet downtown building. James Carter, now operations director, personally oversaw the recovery of dozens of forgotten veterans. Nathan Reed, the first participant, received treatment instead of prison. Lieutenant Brooks, after a probe exposing years of discrimination and abuse, was demoted to a desk job in a rural precinct, his ambitions to lead the department gone. "How'd you know?" Lieutenant Lopez, now a frequent visitor to James's office, asked. "How'd you know Reed would pick that building?" James smiled softly. "Observation. Same apartment he lived in during training 35 years ago. If you pay attention, Patterns tell the story. Lopez nodded. Lesson learned. The department's changing, you know. New anti-bias training protocols. Your story's a case study. Protocols aren't enough, James replied. You need to change hearts. 6 months post-incident, James received honors he never imagined. The Chicago PD named a training room after him, Carter Hall, dedicated to observation and pattern recognition. At the ceremony, the new police chief handed James a report. Since new protocols, excessive force incidents dropped 40%. Discrimination complaints halved. One voice can change a system, the chief said. Your silence taught us more than 1,000 speeches. James accepted the honor with the same dignity he showed that fateful night. No fanfare, no boasts. Days later, training recruits, he noticed a young officer in the back, Lieutenant Brooks, now without insignia, humbler. I requested this training, Brooks explained. Arrogance gone. Thought I might need to learn better observation. James studied him. Observation starts when you let go of assumptions, he said. Welcome. Driving home, James reflected on how crises reveal character. Some, like Brooks, needed to fall to learn. Others, like Lopez, needed a model. On his modest apartment's wall, among old photos, hung a new one. James Carter receiving the Civilian Medal of Honor beside 3 hostages who'd never know they nearly died due to prejudice. The real victory wasn't the medal or belated recognition. Those 5 words became the Horizon program's motto. Respect is not a title. In the end, James Carter didn't raise his voice to be heard. His quiet dignity spoke louder than any siren, proving lifelong wisdom outshines any weapon, and true respect is never demanded, but earned through actions that speak when words fail. If this story of prejudice and overdue recognition moved you, subscribe for more justice tales showing true strength lies not in belittling others, but in holding your dignity when the world tries to diminish you.